The emergency beacon screamed through the command center of Haven Prime Station like a ghost from the past. Admiral Torres dropped her coffee cup, watching the hot liquid splash across her desk as impossible words flashed on her screen. The transmission. Signature belonged to the UES Horizon, a ship that had been declared lost with all hands 15 years ago. Communications Officer Riley turned in her chair, her face pale. "Admiral, I've checked the codes 3 times. It's definitely the Horizon, but this can't be right." Torres wiped coffee from her uniform, her mind racing. She had known Captain Reed personally. They had served together during the Proxima incident, back when Earth was still learning how to navigate galactic politics. The Horizon had been humanity's most ambitious project, designed to explore beyond the galactic rim where no species had ever returned from. "Put it through," she ordered. The main screen flickered to life, revealing a face that belonged to her. Nightmares. Captain Reed looked exactly as he had the day he left Earth space. Not a gray hair, not a wrinkle, not even the tired eyes that came from years of deep space travel. Behind him, the Horizon's bridge hummed with activity. But something was different. The walls seemed to shimmer with an inner light that made Torres squint. "Admiral Torres," Reed said with that familiar smile that had charmed diplomats from a dozen species. "Permission to dock at Haven Prime. We have much to discuss." Torres found her voice. "Reed, you look exactly the same. How is that possible? Where have you been for 15 years? "Time moves differently where we've been," Reed replied, his expression growing serious. "As for where, well, that's a long story. But first I need to warn you, every major power in the galaxy is about to take a very keen interest in what we've brought back." Before Torres could respond, tactical alarms began blaring throughout the station. Lieutenant Commander Hayes, her tactical officer, looked up from his console with wide eyes. "Admiral, the Horizon's energy readings are off the charts. Our sensors can't even properly measure their power output. It's like trying to measure the sun with a flashlight." Torres felt a chill run down her spine. In her 20 years of service, she had seen weapons that could crack planets and shields that could withstand stellar radiation. But she had never seen readings like these. "Reed, what did you find out there?" she whispered. "Something that's been waiting for us," he replied. "The architects left us gifts, Admiral, but they come with responsibilities that humanity has never faced before." The communication channel closed, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Torres stared at the blank screen, her mind struggling to process what she had just heard. The architects were a myth, a legend whispered about in the deepest archives of the oldest civilizations. Even the Etherians, who claimed to be descendants of the first spacefaring species, spoke of them only in hushed tones. "Ma'am," Riley called out, "I'm receiving priority transmissions from the Dracon Fleet Command, the Vorthan Trade Council, and the Etherian Collective. They're all demanding immediate information about the human vessel." Torres wasn't surprised. The galaxy's 3 major powers had monitoring stations throughout this sector. If the Horizon's energy signature was as powerful as their sensors suggested, every government would be scrambling to understand what humanity had discovered. The Draken Empire had always viewed humans as useful, but ultimately expendable allies. Their military culture respected strength above all else, and they had been growing increasingly concerned about human expansion into their traditional territories. The Vorthan Republic saw everything through the lens of profit and resource control. If the Horizon possessed new technology, they would want to either buy it, steal it, or control the species that wielded it. The Etherians were different. Ancient and mysterious, they rarely interfered in galactic politics directly. But their interest in the Horizon was perhaps the most concerning of all. Torres had heard whispers that they possessed knowledge of technologies that predated current civilization by millions of years. "Schedule emergency conferences with all 3 powers," Torres ordered. "But keep the discussions separate. The last thing we need is them forming an alliance against us." "Admiral," Hayes interrupted. The Horizon is requesting priority docking. Clearance. They're transmitting cargo manifests that don't make sense. According to this, they're carrying materials that shouldn't exist. Torres walked over to his station and scanned the manifest. Her eyes widened as she read through the list. Phase-shifted metals, quantum crystalline structures, gravity manipulation cores, and something called temporal stabilization matrices. Each item on the list represented technology that was purely theoretical according to current galactic science. Clear docking bay 7, she ordered. Full security lockdown. No one gets near that ship without my personal authorization. As the Horizon approached the station, Torres watched through the observation deck windows. The ship looked the same as when it had departed Earth 15 years ago, but there was something fundamentally different about it. The hull seemed to bend light around it in ways that hurt to look at directly. Energy patterns danced across its surface like living things. When the docking clamps engaged, every sensor on the station registered a brief pulse of energy unlike anything in their databases. The lights throughout Haven Prime flickered for a moment, and Torres felt a strange sensation, as if the universe itself had shifted slightly. Her personal communicator buzzed with an incoming message from Earth Command. Admiral Morrison's weathered face appeared on the small screen, his expression grim. Torres, we need to know everything about the Horizon's return. The President is convening an emergency session of the Colonial Council. There are reports of massive fleet movements from all 3 major powers. Whatever Reed found out there, it's got everyone scared. Torres nodded. I'll send a full report as soon as I've debriefed the crew. But Admiral, based on what I've seen so far, I don't think scared is the right word. I think they're terrified. As if to emphasize her point, another priority transmission came through from the Draken Empire. This time it wasn't a request for information. It was a demand for humanity to surrender the Horizon and its crew for examination, backed by the implicit threat of military action. Torres closed the channel and looked back at the docked vessel. Whatever Captain Reed had discovered beyond the Galactic Rim, it had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The only question now was whether humanity was ready for the consequences. The inspection team's report made no sense. Dr. Williams, the station's chief scientist, had run the tests 3 times before calling Admiral Torres to the laboratory. Now she stood before a sample of the Horizon's hull plating, watching it phase in and out of visible existence like a ghost made solid. It's impossible, Williams muttered, adjusting his scanner for the 4th time. The material exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. When I try to cut it, my tools pass right through. But when the crew walks on it, it's solid as steel. According to every law of physics we know, this shouldn't be possible. Torres reached out to touch the sample, then thought better of it. What, about their weapon systems? Worse, Williams replied, pulling up holographic displays of the ship's schematics. They have devices that manipulate gravity itself. Not artificial gravity like we use on ships, but actual gravitational fields that can be shaped and directed. Their main cannon appears to fire concentrated space-time distortions. Torres felt a headache building behind her eyes. She had requested this meeting with Captain Reed to get answers, but every new piece of information only raised more questions. The conference room door opened, and Reed entered with 2 of his crew members she didn't recognize. Admiral, Reed said, settling into a chair across from her. I know this is difficult to understand. 3 months ago, I wouldn't have believed it myself. 3 months? Torres leaned forward. Reed, you've been gone for 15 years. Reed's expression grew thoughtful. That's the interesting thing about the Architect facility. Time moves differently there. What felt like months to us apparently translated to years in normal space. The Architects exist outside conventional time, so their technology operates by different rules. One of Reed's companions, a woman with strange silver markings on her temples, spoke for the first time. The symbiosis allows us to perceive multiple temporal streams simultaneously. she said in a voice that seemed to echo, slightly. I am Engineer Davis, though I am also something more now. Torres studied the woman's face. The silver markings seemed to pulse with a faint light, and her eyes held depths that hadn't been there before. Symbiosis? Reed nodded. The architects don't just give technology, Admiral. They integrate with willing participants. We become partners with fragments of their consciousness. It's the only way to safely use their gifts without being consumed by them. That sounds like possession, Torres said carefully. It's not, Reed assured her. I'm still me, still human. But I now have access to knowledge and abilities that no human has ever possessed. We all do. Every member of my crew who survived the trials carries this partnership. Torres felt a chill. How many didn't survive? Reed's face darkened. We lost 12 people. The architect's tests weren't just about intelligence or technical skill. They measured character, integrity, the willingness to sacrifice for others. Those who failed the moral tests didn't die, but they couldn't accept the symbiosis. We had to leave them at the facility, where they'll live comfortably, but can never return to normal space. The room fell silent as Torres processed this information. What exactly did these architects want from you? Engineer Davis answered this time. They wanted to know if humanity was ready for transcendence. Every spacefaring species eventually discovers their abandoned facilities. Most try to steal the technology by force. Others are too afraid to attempt the trials. We're the first in over 1 million years to approach them with both courage and wisdom. Reed pulled out a device Torres didn't recognize. It looked like crystalline, metal shaped into geometric patterns that hurt to look at directly. This is a basic architect tool. It can restructure matter at the molecular level, generate energy from quantum vacuum, or create stable wormholes through space-time. In the wrong hands, it could destroy solar systems. Torres stared at the device. And you brought an entire ship full of this technology back to human space? We brought it back because we knew humanity would need it, Reed replied. The architects showed us what's coming, Admiral. There are forces in the universe that make the Dracon Empire look like children playing with toys. Cosmic entities that feed on entire civilizations, machine intelligences that consume galaxies, beings of pure energy that regard organic life as an infection to be sterilized. The weight of his words settled on Torres like a physical force. When? We don't know exactly, Davis said. The architects exist outside linear time, so their warnings are more like probability maps than specific predictions. But something is stirring in the void between galaxies. Something that has been dormant for millions of years is beginning to wake up. Torres stood and walked to the window overlooking the docking bay where the horizon sat. The ship looked peaceful enough, but she could see technicians from 3 different species trying to scan it with increasingly sophisticated equipment. All of them were failing to penetrate whatever shielding the vessel now possessed. The Dracon ambassador has demanded a face-to-face meeting, she said without turning around. The Vorthan Trade Council is threatening economic sanctions against all human colonies if we don't share this technology, and the Etherians have sent a priority message saying they need to speak with your crew immediately. The Etherians know about the architects, Reed said quietly. They were tested long ago and failed. That's why their civilization declined from galactic dominance to their current state of isolation. Torres turned back to face him. What did they do wrong? They tried to use architect technology to impose their will on other species, Davis explained. They believed that possessing superior technology gave them the right to rule over lesser beings. The architects stripped them of their gifts and made sure they could never attempt to reclaim them. The implications hit Torres like a physical blow. And if humanity makes the same mistake, Reed's expression was grim, then we'll face the same fate. The architects don't give second chances, Admiral. This partnership comes with absolute responsibility. We can never use their gifts for conquest or domination. We can defend ourselves and protect others, but we cannot become rulers or tyrants. Torres sank back into her chair. How do we convince the galaxy that we won't abuse this power? Every major government is probably planning ways to either control us or eliminate us as a threat. We prove it through our actions, Reed replied. The architect's gifts can't be stolen or reverse engineered. They only work through the symbiotic bond, and that bond can only be formed by those who pass their tests. We can share the knowledge freely, without fear of it being misused. A priority alarm interrupted their conversation. Torres activated her communicator to receive an urgent message from her tactical officer. Admiral, we have multiple fleet movements converging on our position. The Draken Third Fleet, a Vorthan corporate armada, and an Etherian observation group are all heading this way. Estimated arrival in 6 hours. Torres looked at Reed, seeing her own concerns reflected in his altered eyes. It looks like we're about to find out how the galaxy reacts to humanity's new capabilities. Reed stood, the crystalline device in his hand beginning to glow with soft light. Then we'd better prepare for the first real test of our partnership with the architects, because if we handle this wrong, it might be the last test humanity ever faces. The Draken war fleet emerged from hyperspace like a swarm of metallic locusts, their angular ships bristling with weapons that could reduce planets to ash. Fleet Commander Brutus transmitted his ultimatum on all frequencies, his scarred face filling every screen on Haven Prime Station. Humans will surrender the vessel called Horizon and all its crew for immediate examination, his gravelly voice announced. You have stolen technology that threatens galactic stability. Compliance is not optional. Admiral Torres watched from the station's command center as more ships continued to arrive. The Draken had brought 3 full battle groups, over 800 vessels of various sizes. The Vorthan corporate fleet positioned themselves at a safe distance, clearly planning to salvage whatever remained after the Drakon attack. Most concerning of all, the Etherian ships maintained complete silence, their crystalline vessels observing everything with ancient patience. Admiral, her tactical officer reported, Earth Command is ordering immediate evacuation of all human colonies within 50 light years. They're expecting complete military defeat within hours. Torres couldn't blame them. On paper, this was no contest. The Horizon was a single exploration vessel, even if it had been mysteriously upgraded. The combined enemy forces could glass entire star systems without breaking formation. Captain Reed's voice came through her personal communicator. Admiral, I'm taking the Horizon out to meet them. That's suicide, Torres replied, watching as the sleek vessel undocked from the station. Even with whatever technology you've acquired, you can't fight that many ships. We're not going to fight them, Reed said calmly. We're going to show them why the architects chose humanity. The Horizon moved through space with fluid grace that defied physics. Instead of the jerky accelerations typical of reaction drives, it seemed to glide, as if space itself was bending around it. The ship positioned itself directly between the Drakon fleet and Haven Prime, a single minnow facing a school of sharks. Fleet Commander Brutus obviously viewed this as either supreme arrogance or complete insanity. His flagship, a massive dreadnought that outweighed the Horizon by a factor of 50, moved to the front of the formation. Human vessel, you will stand down immediately or be destroyed, Brutus broadcasted. This is your final warning. Reed's response was broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship in the system could hear it. Commander Brutus, we will not surrender, but we will not attack you either. We are here to defend innocent lives and prevent unnecessary bloodshed. Please reconsider your actions. The Drakon commander's laughter was harsh and bitter. Typical human weakness. You face certain death and still try to negotiate. Torres held her breath as the Draken fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams and plasma torpedoes streaked toward the lone human vessel. The combined firepower could have vaporized a small moon. What happened next redefined everything. Torres thought she knew about warfare. The Horizon didn't dodge or raise conventional shields. Instead, The space around the ship seemed to ripple like water. The incoming weapons? Fire struck something invisible and simply stopped, hanging motionless in space as if frozen in time. Then, impossibly, the energy began to flow backward along its original path. Every Dracon ship found itself struck by its own weapons, but not destructively. Instead of explosions, their systems simply shut down. Weapons went offline, engines stopped, life support systems switched to backup power. Within minutes, the entire Dracon fleet was helpless, drifting in space like giant paperweights. The Vorthon corporate vessels began emergency retreat procedures, but the Horizon's influence reached them as well. Their ships didn't shut down, but their weapon systems refused to function. Every time they tried to target the human vessel, their computers displayed error messages claiming no valid targets were detected. Throughout the engagement, the Horizon hadn't fired a single shot. Reed's voice echoed across all communication channels. "This is Captain Reed of the UES Horizon. We have disabled your ability to cause harm, but we have not harmed you. Your life support systems are fully functional, and emergency power will be restored in 1 hour. We ask only that you consider whether violence was necessary." Fleet Commander Brutus appeared on screen again, his face purple with rage. "What sorcery is this? Our weapons are the most advanced in the galaxy." "Your weapons are designed to destroy," Reed replied patiently. "The Architect's gifts are designed to protect and preserve life. Your technology cannot overcome something fundamentally more advanced because it operates by entirely different principles." The Etherian fleet, which had remained silent throughout the confrontation, suddenly came alive with activity. Their lead vessel, a graceful ship that looked more grown than built, approached the Horizon slowly. "This is Ambassador Lyril of the Etherian Collective," came a melodious voice that seemed to harmonize with itself. "Captain Reed, we request permission to board your vessel. We have much to discuss." Torres watched in amazement as a small shuttle detached from the Etherian ship and approached the Horizon. She had never seen the ancient aliens in person, but she knew their reputation for avoiding direct contact with younger species. The Dracon fleet remained helpless, their crews no doubt working frantically to restore their systems. But Torres could see on her sensors that whatever the Horizon had done was beyond their technology to counter. The human ship had neutralized the most powerful military force in local space without killing a single being. Her communicator buzzed with an incoming message from Earth Command. Admiral Morrison appeared on screen, his expression a mixture of awe and terror. "Torres, what in hell did that ship just do? Our deep space monitors recorded energy signatures that don't match anything in our databases. The physics department is in complete chaos trying to understand the sensor data." "They stopped a war without firing a shot," Torres replied, still trying to process what she had witnessed. "Admiral, I think we need to completely reevaluate humanity's position in the galaxy." On her main screen, she could see the Etherian shuttle docking with the Horizon. Whatever conversation was about to take place between Reed and Ambassador Lyril would likely determine the future of every species in local space. The Vorthan fleet had retreated to a safe distance, but continued to observe. Their corporate masters would be calculating the economic implications of technology that could neutralize entire fleets without causing insurance claims for destroyed vessels. Most importantly, Fleet Commander Brutus was learning a lesson that the Draken Empire had never faced before. Their culture was built on the principle that superior firepower equaled superior right to rule. The Horizon had just demonstrated that there were forms of power that transcended mere destruction. As Torres watched the ancient Etherian vessel alongside humanity's transformed exploration ship, she realized that the galaxy was about to change in ways that none of them could fully understand. The age of conquest through superior weapons might be ending, replaced by something far more complex and challenging. The question was whether the various species would be wise enough to adapt, or whether they would continue to cling to the old. ways until the universe itself forced them to evolve. Either way, humanity had just announced its presence on the galactic stage in a manner that could never be ignored or forgotten. Ambassador Lyral materialized in Haven Prime's diplomatic quarters like morning mist taking solid form. Her species had perfected matter transmission technology when humans were still learning to make fire, but seeing it in person still made Admiral Torres catch her breath. The Etherean stood nearly 7 feet tall, her translucent skin showing networks of light that pulsed gently beneath the surface. "Admiral Torres," Lyral said, her voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in multiple dimensions. "I have come to share a truth that my people have hidden for 3 million years. Captain Reed and his crew have accomplished something we thought impossible." Torres gestured to the conference table where Reed and Engineer Davis were already seated. The transformation in Reed's crew was even more apparent now. Davis's silver markings had grown more intricate, forming patterns that seemed to shift when viewed directly. Reed himself looked more solid somehow, as if he existed more completely in reality than ordinary humans. "Ambassador," Torres began, "your people's sudden interest in humanity is concerning our allies. The Drakon Empire is demanding explanations, and the Vorthon Republic is threatening economic warfare if they're excluded from whatever arrangements we're making." Lyral's expression showed something that might have been ancient sadness. "They fear what they do not understand, as my people once did. May I share our history with you? It may help you comprehend the magnitude of what Captain Reed has achieved." Reed leaned forward. "I've seen fragments of it through the Architect collective consciousness, but the full story might help everyone understand what we're really dealing with." Lyral gestured, and the air above the conference table shimmered. Holographic images began forming, showing star systems and civilizations that predated current galactic history by millions of years. "Long before your species evolved beyond their homeworld," Lyral began, "the Ethereans ruled a third of this galaxy. We had discovered the Architect facility that your Captain Reed found, and we had passed their initial tests. For nearly 1,000,000 years, we wielded their technology with what we believed was wisdom. The holographic display showed massive ring worlds and stellar engineering projects that dwarfed anything in current civilization. Entire star systems had been reshaped, planets moved into optimal orbits, and space itself modified to support impossible structures. We were benevolent rulers, or so we told ourselves," Lyral continued. "We ended wars, eliminated hunger, cured diseases that plagued lesser species. We genuinely believed we were helping the galaxy achieve peace and prosperity." Torres studied the images. "That sounds admirable. What went wrong?" "We made the same mistake every powerful civilization eventually makes," Lyral replied sadly. "We began to believe that our superior technology gave us the right to make decisions for everyone else. When species refused our help or chose different paths, we forced our solutions upon them for their own good." The holographic display shifted to show massive fleets of Etherean vessels suppressing rebellions and imposing their version of order on reluctant populations. "The Architects had given us power beyond imagination," Lyral explained, "but they had also given us a test we didn't realize we were taking. Every use of their technology was monitored, every decision evaluated. When we crossed the line from protection to domination, they acted." Davis spoke for the first time during the meeting. "I can feel their disappointment even now, echoing through the collective memory. They had hoped for so much more from organic intelligence." The holographic images showed the sudden collapse of Etherean civilization. Ships powered by Architect technology simply stopped functioning. Stellar engineering projects shut down, leaving billions stranded on artificial worlds that could no longer support life. The mighty Etherean empire crumbled in a matter of decades. We were left with just enough technology to survive, Lyral said. "But never again could we access the true gifts of the Architects. We became observers, watching as younger species discovered the same facilities and faced the same tests. For 3 million years, we have seen every spacefaring civilization fail. Torres felt the weight of that history settling over the room. Every single one? Everyone, Lyral confirmed. The aggressive species try to steal architect technology by force and are destroyed by the facility's defenses. The cautious species refuse to attempt the trials and remain limited to conventional technology. The wise species pass the initial tests, but eventually succumb to the temptation to use their power for control rather than service. Reed's expression was thoughtful. That's why the architects were so surprised by our approach. We didn't try to conquer their facility or steal their secrets. We asked for partnership. More than that, Davis added, we maintained our essential humanity throughout the process. The symbiosis enhances us, but it doesn't replace who we are. We remain individuals capable of choice, including the choice to refuse power when necessary. Lyral moved closer to the table, her light patterns brightening with what seemed like excitement. This is why Captain Reed's success is so significant. You have proven that organic intelligence can evolve beyond the cycle of power and corruption. You represent hope for the entire galaxy. Torres stood and walked to the window overlooking the docking bay. The Draken fleet was still powerless, their crews working frantically to restore systems that the Horizon had disabled through methods they couldn't understand. But can we maintain this balance? How do we know we won't eventually fall into the same trap as the Etherians? Because the partnership is not permanent, Reed answered. The architect fragments in our consciousness will withdraw if we prove unworthy. We can't be corrupted by power we might lose at any moment. There's more, Lyral said softly. The architects have been waiting not just for a species capable of wielding their technology wisely, but for partners in a greater task. They exist outside normal space-time, but there are forces in the universe that threaten even them. The holographic display shifted again, showing the vast darkness between galaxies. But the darkness was not empty. Things moved in that void, entities so large that entire star systems would be insignificant to them. The Devourers, Davis whispered, her voice carrying harmonics that hadn't been there before. They feed on consciousness itself, consuming entire civilizations and leaving nothing but empty matter behind. Torres felt her blood run cold. When will they arrive? Time is not linear for beings of their nature, Lyral explained. They exist in multiple temporal streams simultaneously. But the architects believe that cosmic cycles are aligning in ways that will soon draw the Devourer's attention to this galaxy. Reed activated his communicator, connecting to the Horizon. Engineering! Prepare the quantum resonance array. We need to send a message to Earth Command immediately. Torres looked at him sharply. What kind of message? The kind that will convince them to authorize a new type of space exploration, Reed replied. We're going to need volunteers, Admiral. People willing to face the architect trials and accept the partnership. Because humanity alone, even with our new capabilities, won't be enough to face what's coming. The implications hit Torres like a physical blow. You're talking about transforming our entire species. Not transforming, Davis corrected. Evolving. The architects offer partnership to those capable of growth, but the decision to accept must be made freely by each individual. Lyral's light patterns shifted to what Torres was beginning to recognize as approval. Your species continues to surprise us, Admiral. Most civilizations that gain access to architect technology become obsessed with using it to solve their immediate problems. You're already thinking about how to share it responsibly. Torres returned to her seat, her mind struggling to process the enormity of what she was hearing. What about the other major powers? The Draken Empire will never accept being relegated to a secondary role in galactic affairs. The Vorthan Republic will do anything to gain access to this technology. Then they will have the opportunity to face the architect trials themselves, Reed said simply. We can't force evolution on anyone, but we can offer the chance to everyone. The conference room fell silent as everyone contemplated the future. Outside, the powerless Dracon fleet served as a reminder that the old ways of doing things were no longer sufficient. The galaxy was about to change in ways that would challenge every assumption about power, civilization, and the nature of life itself. 6 months had passed since the Horizon's return, and the galaxy barely resembled its former self. Admiral Torres stood in her new office aboard the diplomatic station that had replaced Haven Prime, watching as ships from dozens of species approached. The jump gate that led to Architect Space. The transformation hadn't been easy. The Draken Empire had split into 3 separate factions when their military commanders realized that traditional warfare was becoming obsolete. Some embraced the new paradigm and sent volunteers to face the architect trials. Others retreated to isolated systems, clinging to the old ways. A few had declared war on the very concept of evolution itself. The Vorthan Republic had adapted more successfully, turning the crisis into an opportunity for economic transformation. They now operated the largest volunteer transport network in the galaxy, helping members of various species reach the Architect facility safely. Profit margins were smaller than their traditional military contracts, but the volume was unprecedented. Captain Reed materialized beside her using the matter. Transmission technology that still made Torres uncomfortable. The silver markings that all successful candidates developed had grown more elaborate over the months, creating intricate patterns that seemed to contain their own inner logic. "The morning briefing," Reed said simply, handing her a crystalline datapad that contained more information than entire computer networks once held. Torres scanned the summary, still amazed by the scope of change. Over 50,000 beings from 37 different species had attempted the Architect trials. The success rate was depressingly low, only about 12%, but those who succeeded returned with capabilities that were reshaping entire civilizations. "The Zaloran delegation arrived this morning," Torres noted, reading through the diplomatic reports. "That makes every major species in local space now participating in the program." "Everyone except the Corvin Collective," Reed corrected. "They're still convinced this is some elaborate human trick to achieve galactic domination." Torres couldn't entirely blame the Corvins for their suspicion. The rapid transformation of human colonies was visible from space. As Architect enhanced, humans began implementing technologies that seemed like magic to outside observers. Entire planets were being terraformed in weeks rather than centuries. Space habitats were growing like living things, expanding and adapting to their inhabitants' needs. "Any word from the deep space monitors?" Torres asked. Reed's expression grew serious. "The sensors are detecting increased activity in the void between galaxies. Whatever's out there is beginning to stir. The architects estimate we have perhaps 5 years before the first scout entities arrive. 5 years to prepare an entire galaxy for a threat that could consume consciousness itself." Torres had been in the military long enough to know that such timelines were optimistic at best. "How many partnership candidates do we need?" she asked. "According to the collective calculations, at least 10 million beings capable of wielding Architect technology at full capacity," Reed replied. "Currently, we have approximately 6,000. The numbers were daunting, but Torres had learned not to despair. Humanity's approach to the crisis had inspired responses she never could have predicted. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together, sharing volunteers and resources to maximize the number of successful candidates. Ambassador Lyral's report came through this morning. Torres continued reading. "The Etherian Collective is opening their historical archives to all participants. They're sharing 3 million years of observations about Architect technology and its proper applications. This was perhaps the most significant development of all. The Etherians had guarded their secrets jealously since their fall from power, but the threat of the Devourers had convinced them to become active participants in galactic preparation." Reed activated a holographic display showing the current status of volunteer expeditions. We have 23 ships currently at various architect facilities throughout the galaxy. The failure rate is dropping as we learn more about what the trials actually test for. Torres studied the data. The trials weren't random or cruel. They tested for qualities that seemed essential for handling transcendent power: selflessness, wisdom, the ability to see long-term consequences, and most importantly, the strength to refuse power when its use would cause more harm than good. The Draken volunteers are performing better than expected, Torres observed. Their military discipline helps them focus during the trials. The Vorthons are struggling more, Reed noted. Their profit-focused mindset conflicts with the selflessness requirements, but those who succeed become incredibly effective at resource management and logistics. A priority alert interrupted their discussion. Engineer Davis appeared in the office, her form solidifying from what looked like crystallized light. The transformation in the original Horizon crew had progressed far beyond what anyone had expected, but they remained recognizably human in their thoughts and motivations. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from the Outer Rim monitoring stations," Davis said, her voice carrying harmonic undertones that suggested urgency. "Something large just entered our galaxy from intergalactic space." Torres felt her heart skip. "The Devourers?" "No," Reed replied, consulting his crystalline data device. "This signature is different. It's artificial, but not hostile. The Architect's collective consciousness is responding with what I can only describe as joy." The main display activated without any apparent command, showing a massive structure that dwarfed entire star systems. It looked like a city built from crystallized music, its geometric patterns too complex for normal minds to fully comprehend. "It's another architect construct," Davis explained. "A mobile facility, much larger than the static ring worlds we've been visiting. The collective is calling it a constructor ship." Torres stared at the impossible structure. "What does it construct?" "Defense networks," Reed answered, his expression showing the distant look that meant he was accessing information through his partnership bond. "It's designed to create galaxy-wide protective systems, but it only activates when a species proves worthy of its gifts." The implications were staggering. The architects hadn't just been testing individual species for partnership, they had been searching for civilizations capable of defending entire galaxies against cosmic-level threats. "How do we prove worthy?" Torres asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. "By demonstrating that we can work together across species lines," Davis replied. "The constructor ship will only respond to a truly cooperative effort between multiple evolved civilizations." Torres activated her communications array, establishing contact with representatives from every major power in local space. The faces that appeared on her screens showed the same mixture of awe and determination she felt. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of various classifications," she began, "it appears we have an opportunity to take our preparations to the next level, but it will require unprecedented cooperation." Fleet Commander Brutus, his scarred face now marked with the silver tracery of successful architect partnership, spoke first. "Admiral, the Draken military stands ready to coordinate with all allied forces. We have learned that true strength comes from unity, not domination." The transformation in the Drakon leader was perhaps the most dramatic Torres had witnessed. The trials had stripped away his aggressive arrogance, revealing a tactical genius capable of thinking beyond conquest. Representative Val of the Vorthon, Republic nodded agreement. "Our logistics networks are at your disposal. We can coordinate supply lines and transport systems across the entire galaxy if necessary." Ambassador Lyral's image showed approval through the complex light patterns beneath her translucent skin. "The Etherian archives contain the activation protocols for constructor ships. We will share everything." Torres looked around at the assembled leaders, seeing hope where once there had been rivalry and suspicion. "Then let's show the universe what cooperation can accomplish." Over the following weeks, The galaxy witnessed something unprecedented in its recorded history. Former enemies worked side by side, sharing resources and knowledge without regard for traditional boundaries. Draken military efficiency combined with Vorthan logistics expertise and Etherian historical wisdom to create a network of cooperation that spanned thousands of star systems. The constructor ship responded to their efforts by beginning its work. Massive energy fields began appearing at strategic points throughout the galaxy, forming a defensive network that could detect and repel threats from intergalactic space. The construction process itself became a learning experience, as the ship's systems taught participating crews advanced techniques for manipulating matter and energy. Captain Reed stood with Torres on the observation deck of the new command station that had grown around the constructor ship. The view outside showed a galaxy transformed, its ancient patterns of conflict replaced by something unprecedented in cosmic history. The deep space monitors are reporting increased devourer activity, Reed said quietly. They know something has changed here. They're beginning to take notice of our galaxy. Torres nodded, feeling strangely calm despite the magnitude of the threat they faced. Are we ready? No, Reed replied honestly. We may never be truly ready for what's coming, but we're no longer helpless, and more importantly, we're no longer alone. The galaxy had learned to transcend its limitations not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation and mutual growth. Species that had warred for millennia now stood together as partners in something greater than any of them could have achieved alone. As Torres watched ships from dozens of civilizations working together to complete the defensive network, she realized that humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy hadn't been architect technology. It had been the demonstration that evolution was possible, that civilizations could choose to grow beyond their primitive instincts and embrace something better. The Devourers were coming, but they would find a galaxy united and armed with powers they had never encountered before. The age of cosmic predation was ending, replaced by an era of conscious cooperation that would reshape the universe itself. In the distance, more constructor ships were emerging from the void between galaxies, drawn by the success of the first. The architects had found what they had searched for across cosmic ages, partners worthy of the greatest challenges the universe could present. The test of fire had become a forge of transformation, and from it had emerged something new under the stars.